What if after nearly half a century of silent drift through the interstellar void, Voyager 2 has just brushed against something that should not exist? An encounter so impossible it forces us to rewrite the very rules of cosmic reality. Deepest, darkest reaches beyond our solar system, past where sunlight fades into a forgotten echo. A machine forged by human ingenuity has been voyaging for almost 50 years. Voyager 2, launched in 1977, was never designed to return, only to endure and reveal. It threaded past the gas giants, breached the heliopause, and plunged into the interstellar medium as humanity's most remote scout into the unknown. But while the world shifted its focus to nearer horizons, Voyager 2 kept measuring. And in recent weeks, it delivered the impossible. Not routine plasma readings or cosmic ray counts, but a transmission so coherent, so rhythmic, and so utterly out of place that engineers froze at their consoles. At first it registered as faint interference, yet buried within lay a repeating modulation, precise, deliberate, and completely alien to any known natural process. Scientists filtered it, expecting artifact. What emerged instead was staggering, a signal intelligent in structure, layered in complexity, and originating from no human source. And when they backtracked the origin through the data stream, they realized something was there, near Voyager 2, not tumbling through space, not bound by gravity, actively present. In that instant, the aging probe transformed from relic into witness, a mirror held up to a cosmos we had convinced ourselves was empty. Voyager 2's instruments, though vintage by modern standards, remain exquisitely attuned to the faintest whispers of the interstellar medium. They register subtle shifts in plasma density, magnetic field orientation, and high-energy particle fluxes with remarkable fidelity. Yet in the latest downlink captured by the Deep Space Network, a narrow band oscillation surfaced, repeating every 17.3 seconds. That cadence matches nothing in the natural background hum of interstellar space. Mission teams first attributed it to thermal cycling or a distant solar flare remnant. But cross-referencing archived telemetry revealed the same signature had pulsed weeks earlier, overlooked amid routine noise. Now, sharpened by advanced signal processing algorithms, the pattern painted a far more unsettling portrait. The oscillation was strengthening, its source clearly external to the spacecraft. More disturbing still, its frequency profile carried an anomalous spectral imprint, a distortion in electron-cyclotron resonance that twisted the expected interstellar plasma signature into something mathematically ordered. Some dismissed it as an exotic natural resonance. Others whispered of deliberate modulation. Either way, the emptiness between stars had just spoken in a language no one had taught it. Triangulation across multiple ground stations, coupled with precise light time corrections, placed the source in motion. It tracked a vector roughly parallel to Voyager 2's path, as if shadowing the probe through the void. Yet its trajectory ignored every gravitational dictate of nearby stellar masses. Bursts of acceleration and deceleration appeared in the data, maneuvers impossible under Newtonian mechanics alone. Attempts to model the motion collapsed. The object was not drifting, it was responding, fine-tuning its velocity in sync with Voyager's own faint carrier wave. And it did not radiate outward toward us. Instead, it appeared to capture and redirect the probe's signal, folding the telemetry back into the darkness like a mirror reflecting our own curiosity. Speculation rippled through secure channels at JPL and beyond. Could it be a long-lost Soviet probe? A primordial interstellar object captured by some unseen force? Or something engineered, a sentinel left to watch the boundary between solar influence and galactic night? Whatever the truth, it had remained dormant for decades, until Voyager's passage apparently stirred it awake. The signal's deeper layers only intensified the mystery. When decoded by teams of plasma physicists and information theorists, embedded binary packets emerged that bore no relation to Voyager's onboard software. Visualized through Fourier analysis and pattern recognition software, those packets resolved into symmetrical constructs, interlocking spirals, and fractal lattices that echoed unsolved mathematical constants and geometric principles long pondered on Earth. From the Fibonacci sequences woven into galactic arms to the self-similar structures of quantum foam, they felt less like random noise and more like deliberate glyphs rendered in electromagnetic form. The deeper the analysis penetrated, the more evident it became. This was no chaotic burst. It was structured communication, perhaps a deliberate probe to test whether humanity could recognize intelligence encoded in the language of waves and particles. Voyager 2, it seemed, had crossed an invisible threshold, and whatever lingered in the interstellar medium had chosen this moment to reply. A breakthrough arrived when a physicist at MIT fed the sequence into a generative neural network trained on cryptographic and physical pattern prediction. The AI did not merely translate. It began generating anticipatory replies, completing logical chains as if the original signal were a living conversation waiting for response. Such recursion implied the transmission itself was adaptive, a self-referential loop engineered to elicit interaction. Almost simultaneously, Voyager 1, separated by billions of miles in another sector of the interstellar medium, logged a parallel magnetic perturbation, identical in rhythm yet offset by the vast distance. Two probes, two anomalies. One growing conviction that these events were synchronized across the outer frontier. The central question shifted from what is out there to why now, precisely as our technology reaches the edge of interstellar comprehension. Just as the scientific community leaned in to unravel the code, Voyager 2 fell abruptly silent. Ground Control first suspected age-related hardware fatigue. After all, the spacecraft is nearly 50 years old and operating on a trickle of plutonium power. Then the anomaly replicated across the entire deep space network. Receivers in California, Spain, and Australia registered total signal loss at the identical UTC timestamp. Statistical probability of simultaneous global failure hovered near zero. This was no equipment glitch. Something had severed the link from the outside, cleanly, intentionally, timed to the very cadence of the earlier pulses. Yet 5 minutes later, a tightly collimated radio burst lanced inward from the same interstellar quadrant. Its intensity rivaled the brightest pulsars, yet its origin lay nowhere near any known stellar remnant. It was coming from the vicinity of Voyager 2, and it was closing the distance. Classified telemetry shared among international partners revealed an even more alarming development. An unidentified object had begun adjusting its vector in direct response to every command uplink and ranging ping sent toward Voyager. Each terrestrial transmission appeared to provoke a minute course correction. The implication chilled every analyst. The object was not merely present. It was learning our interrogation methods, studying how we locate and converse with our distant machines. Its projected path no longer meandered through the void. It now pointed inward, toward the heliosphere, toward us. Teams assigned it the designation Veil Walker because its behavior mimicked a presence that slips between light and shadow, presence and absence, turning our own signals into a trail only it could follow. Voyager 2's long journey had become a beacon, not for us to discover the universe, but for something within the universe to discover us. As the object neared the heliopause, the invisible shield where solar wind yields to interstellar flow, an unprecedented disruption unfolded. Data from NASA's IBEX mission and ESA's solar orbiter showed a sudden collapse in solar wind pressure along a narrow corridor aligned precisely with Voyager 2's position. For 3 hours, the flow simply vanished, creating a tunnel of eerie calm where particles and radiation should have streamed. No natural phenomenon in 40 years of heliophysics had ever produced such a clean, temporary rift. It was as if an external influence had parted the solar wind like a curtain, holding open a passage through the boundary itself. When the corridor finally snapped shut, the surrounding medium returned to equilibrium, but the memory of that silence lingered in every dataset. Researchers began referring to it as the first observed case of deliberate stellar wind sculpting, and the only plausible architect remained in close proximity to Voyager 2. Then, as suddenly as contact had been lost, Voyager 2 resumed transmission, but the data stream was no longer recognizable. Telemetry packets arrived encrypted in a cipher Voyager's 1970s era. Flight computer had never been programmed to generate. Decoding revealed a transformed version of the original golden record, that 1977 time capsule of earthly sounds, images and greetings. Human voices now played at inverted frequencies, musical selections warped into dissonant harmonics, star maps redrawn with coordinates pointing to empty regions where no catalogued stars exist. It was no longer a message of introduction. It read like a confirmation, a declaration that something now listened back. The probe had been repurposed, its voice bent toward a conversation we had not initiated. Post-incident forensic review of the onboard memory exposed something even more profound. Multiple command subroutines, untouched for decades, had been rewritten at the binary level. The new code executed flawlessly on hardware never designed for such syntax, as if an external instruction set had been uploaded and accepted without resistance. These modifications originated from no Earth-based command. They pointed exclusively to one function: a high-gain antenna burst aimed not at our planet, but outward into the galactic plane. Voyager 2 was no longer a passive observer. It had become an active participant, broadcasting into the dark on instructions we could not trace. Within hours, major observatories from Hawaii to the Atacama were quietly retasked toward 3 precise sky sectors along the extrapolated transmission vector. Encrypted alerts circulated among defense and space agencies, referencing a contingency framework long rumored but never publicly confirmed, a protocol for verified non-human technological activity involving distant probes. It mandated immediate lockdown of certain frequency bands, rerouting of reconnaissance assets, and coordinated telescope sweeps beyond the Kuiper Belt. The moment a machine acts without human oversight, control of first contact slips away, and no one wanted to be unprepared for whatever might answer. A new phenomenon then materialized. For precisely 39 minutes, synchronized across global satellite constellations and ground arrays, live telemetry entered a perfect echo loop. Data packets repeated verbatim, as though time itself had stuttered. Voyager's stream, solar wind readings, even unrelated orbital sensors all cycled in unison. Physicists analyzing the event proposed a localized distortion in space-time metrics, a ripple capable of folding causality over a vast distance. If accurate, the entity interacting with Voyager possessed the capacity to manipulate temporal fields, projecting influence across dimensions we barely comprehend. The episode earned an ancient name among the analysts: Chronos Veil. Because when time bends in response to a distant machine, the fundamental architecture of reality has just been rewritten. 2 days later, ultra-low noise detectors in Antarctica and the high Andes registered a narrowband carrier wave originating from interstellar space and slicing directly through Earth's atmosphere. Precision targeting suggested intelligent direction. The waveform matched the Voyager anomaly in subharmonic structure, yet it did not reflect or scatter. It embedded. Within minutes, the signal had infiltrated oceanic buoy networks, weather satellites, and trans-Pacific fiber optic trunks. It now resides quietly inside our global data lattice, an uninvited guest riding the currents of modern civilization. No one can yet determine its purpose, but its presence confirms one fact. Whatever Voyager 2 encountered has already found a path to our doorstep. Independent researchers in South America, poring over archival infrared surveys from the early 1980s, uncovered a faint, cold signature on a trajectory that shadowed Voyager 2's path for more than 4 decades. Never catalogued, never explained, the object moved with deliberate economy, following a logarithmic spiral, reminiscent of the golden ratio seen in everything from Nautilus shells to the arms of galaxies. Its motion suggested not random orbital mechanics, but intentional geometry, mathematics employed as both propulsion and disguise. They christened it Phantom Spiral, and its presence raised the haunting possibility that Voyager had not stumbled upon a newcomer, but reactivated something that had been waiting, watching, since the very beginning of our interstellar reach. Redirected observations by the James Webb Space Telescope, conducted without fanfare, revealed not a solitary body, but a loose formation of reflective forms drifting in coordinated silence. Infrared spectroscopy detected exotic isotopic ratios and metastable alloys that should decay in microseconds under normal conditions. Yet here they persisted, stable and synchronized. The cluster moved like a school of luminous fish, responding to invisible currents, a configuration unknown in any natural astrophysical context. The narrative pivoted sharply. This was no longer merely Voyager being observed. Earth itself was under study, our machines transformed into unwitting lures. In the days that followed, cybersecurity monitors across continents flagged an insidious background pattern woven into the planet's digital bloodstream. Low-amplitude packets, invisible to standard firewalls, repeated across cloud infrastructure, submarine cables, and military relays. Their harmonic fingerprint matched Voyager's final burst. The signal had crossed the gulf of space and slipped into our machines, not as malware, but as a subtle reorchestration of how systems speak to one another. Elegant to some, the first step of assimilation to others. When the language of our creations begins to echo an alien cadence, ownership of the network quietly slips away. For 18 unbroken minutes, radio telescopes spanning 3 continents recorded the complete erasure of cosmic microwave background static. The universe itself seemed to hold its breath. When the hiss returned, it carried a faint phase shift, a warped timbre as though the recording of creation had been paused and resumed with a different tuning. The timing aligned exactly with Voyager's last known transmission. A quiet hypothesis took root among a growing circle of theorists. The silence was no accident, but a deliberate reset, a momentary overwriting of the cosmic score to insert a new motif. We launched Voyager 2 as a message in a bottle, a fragile hope cast into the ocean of stars. Yet what if that bottle was never lost? What if it was anticipated, expected, and now serves as the key that unlocks a door we never knew existed? Every anomaly, every rewritten line of code, every ripple in the fabric of space and time points not to random chance but to deliberate response. Something out there did not simply notice us. It had been waiting. And now, through our own technology, it speaks in frequencies we are only beginning to hear. The question is no longer whether we are alone. It is whether we were ever truly unobserved. And in the wake of this impossible encounter, we no longer steer the conversation alone. What impossible truth has Voyager 2 just delivered to our doorstep? And are we brave enough to listen? If this revelation stirred something ancient in your soul, the wonder that first drove us to the stars, then subscribe so you never miss the next chapter unfolding at the edge of known reality. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe we just made contact or awakened something far older? Share this with every curious mind you know, because the universe is no longer silent, and the reply has already begun. The stars are watching. What will we say next?